Lockport Township High School District 205, parents and guardians. My name is Bob McBride, Superintendent, and this is your board meeting brief for the Board of Education meeting that we had right here in the Porter Room on Tuesday, February 20th. Of course, we held an unusual meeting on a Tuesday because it was President's Day on Monday, February 19th, when we typically would have met. A great time to acknowledge leadership of all sorts in our democratic society. And speaking of leadership, I want to start with this board meeting brief, two very important appointments that our board approved right at the beginning of the meeting. In December, Board of Education member Marty Boersma, who was elected in April of 2023, resigned his position on the board. Our Board of Education went through a process where they received applications, a total of 16, processed those applications, interviewed individuals in the community, and eventually arrived at a successful candidate to take Mr. Boersma's seat until April 2025. That successful candidate is Mr. Lance Thies. Last night, Mr. Thies was sworn in, approved by the board, and took his seat with the board to begin his tenure. If he selects to run again for the board, he would do so in April of 2025. We are very happy that Lance has joined the board. He's an architect. He works for the city of Lockport. I think he's going to bring both of his professional identities to what we do as a Board of Education. Another very important appointment. Last month in January, the Board of Education appointed Dr. John Greenan, the current principal of East Campus, to the position of Assistant Superintendent for Personnel. Dr. Greenan will start in that position on July 1st, 2024. That left a vacancy in the East Campus principalship. We had a very in-depth hiring process. We saw many candidates through 3 rounds of interviews, and the successful candidate was Dr. Jacqueline Johnson. Dr. Johnson comes to us from High School District 218, which is Richards, Eisenhower, and Shepherd High Schools, where she serves as a district administrator for equity and articulation. She works with her entire district to make sure that it has equitable processes, both in academics and hiring, and in articulation. She works with the 13 feeder middle schools that go into High School District 18. She brought her family, friends to celebrate her arrival as principal. We are very excited to have Dr. Jacqueline Johnson, who will begin her tenure as East Campus principal on July 1st, 2024. We had 2 other reports that were very consequential in terms of where we're at with Central Campus and in terms of where we're at with the Central Campus referendum. Our Board of Education asked our Chief School Business Official, Mrs. Stephanie Croy, to explain a concept that we look at every single month in our financials. If you ever have an interest in what our financial records are monthly, all of our finances, you can find them in our monthly board report. Every single check we've written, every balance we have, our statement of position is right there for you as taxpayers to take a look at. But this issue of fund balance has come up over and over again. And the Board of Education asked Mrs. Croy to speak to it, really to address some misinformation and some miscommunication in the community. We've had a number of people who have presented our fund balance, which is currently right now at $70 million, as almost as if though it is some separate pile of cash or some separate account that the board anytime can dip into at will to do projects, to pay bills. And really what Mrs. Croy did is re-walked the board through something they already know, that our finances are divided into several funds, 6 primary funds, that we have restricted funds. We have an education fund that has to pay salaries, operations and maintenance, dedicated to operations and maintenance. Transportation, that fund can only be used for transportation. And I could list the other funds, but I think the important point that Mrs. Croy walked through is that when you look at our fund balance, the balance of all of our funds, she walked through how each one of those funds is already dedicated, is already restricted to a very specific purpose to keep our district moving forward. Our education fund is the largest because 70% of our entire expenditure goes towards people. We're in a people business. I would really encourage you to take a look at that piece of our board meeting, which you can find online on our YouTube channel, where that idea of a fund balance is well explained. Our fund balance is not some type of extra cash that the board can distribute at will. It's a very restricted, very organized along state guidelines and state law in order to run every day in our district, and it really includes all the funds that we have at our disposal. Another very important report and very consequential for Central Campus was the final report that we received, and we spent at length almost an hour on this. And again, I would encourage you, if you want to go deeper, look at our archived board meeting from our YouTube channel with WJE Forensic Architects. These are the architects who were on site the very next day after we had a ceiling collapse in room 310. They are also the forensic architects that examined 379 rooms and spaces at Central Campus in terms of going up into the ceiling to see if any other room in the building had the same kind of problems that we found in room 310, the rooms adjacent to it, and then through a process of discovery, other rooms and hallways using a similar construction method for the ceiling as those that collapsed. What did WJE find? I'm not a forensic architect, and in this board meeting brief, I would be hesitant to try to explain it in the detail that they explained it. But I think there are two takeaways that are very important and consequential both for Central and for the referendum that we hope you will pay attention to and is on the ballot March 19th. Age, moisture. Those were two important words that I heard last night. Age. This was a ceiling system built in 1929. It's been hanging 90 plus years. It came to the end of its life. 90 years is a long time for any construction system to be intact and to be useful. Moisture. Where did that moisture come from? It didn't come from some large leak in the roof or some flooding. What it came from is the moisture that builds up inside of Central Campus because we don't have heating and cooling that temperature controls the building. There's quite a bit of condensation and moisture in that building, which ultimately impacts things like nails that hold plaster ceilings up. It impacts masonry, and all together had an aggregate of age and moisture caused that ceiling to collapse. It also caused us to have concern about any other ceiling like it. And as you know, we are right now working on demolishing those ceilings and properly replacing them. But there's also something important in that report as well. The forensic architects shared that there were no visible signs, nothing that would have signaled to anyone, cracking, chipping, falling plaster, water, that would have signaled that those ceilings were about to collapse. The only way that we could have understood that is to be up and in and above through the rafters looking down. Why is that important? Because I think the Central Campus referendum is about prevention. We know we have aged systems. Ceilings, aged systems. Roof, aged system. HVAC, aged system. Electrical, windows, masonry. And really, this referendum is about preventing any further aged system from failing. Finally, something very important for you as a family, I would have you check out, we did approve a calendar for the 2024-2025 school year. It is online now. I would check it out so that you can make your dates for vacation and breaks and when school is not in session and when school is in session. I'm very grateful for the opinions and the feedback you gave us. Previously in past years, we used Thought Exchange to create a dialogue between folks and parents in the district. This year, we just used a Google survey to get your final input, and it was very helpful and very consequential when we're going to start the school year, when we're going to take winter and spring break, when we're going to end the school year as well. So please check that out. Thank you so much for listening to this board meeting brief from the board meeting that we had on Tuesday, February 20th, 2024. Thanks so much, and go Porters.